The second part of our ranked claim to master as part of season 19 was done by P.U.N.K, as you're seeing on screen. Now this was recorded right after the Labyrinth video, but you're probably not seeing this for like a week after the Labyrinth video came out, and it's because I already had other P.U.N.K content scheduled in between and I didn't want the timeline to get weird, right? So here we are. This is the P.U.N.K list that we were playing. It's very similar to the one you saw in the last video dedicated around P.U.N.K. The only difference is that we dropped a couple of hand traps in favor of some Bystials, and it worked wonders. So 100% I would definitely recommend doing the same. But the basic premise and combos and gameplay, all of that is very similar to the previous deck. We're still going to be doing a deck profile and still be doing all of that. So at the end of the video, we'll go through the deck card for card, so you know everything that's here. We're going to show off some replays here from our claim to master. There are some beautiful replays in here, so 100% watch them. It was a great time trying to claim. And yeah, one of my favorite decks of all time, to be honest. We will be playing this deck live today, not the day you're seeing this, but the day in which I'm recording it. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because if you want to catch our live streams, if you want to catch our videos, want to catch anything we do as it's happening, absolutely subscribe. Jump into the Discord as well if you're so inclined. Just so you can get notifications, catch things as it's coming out. It doesn't cost you anything, you know. Helps me out, helps you out. Everybody wins. It doesn't cost. And like the video if you enjoy watching this, if you enjoy P.U.N.K in general. If you have any suggestions, comments, whatever it is you want to do or say, down below. It's there for a reason, or into the Discord, whichever suits you best. But yeah, I'll not waste any more of your time. Let's get into the games. Alrighty, now I'm not doing these in any particular order, but we've got the driver in hand. Love to see it. That's how you know you're on the winner. We're playing against some sort of branded deck from the looks of it. Yep, there it is. Dropping the Fallen of Albaz and the Albion. They're going to drop the Albion directly from deck to hand. They're going to activate Albion, sending Retribution to the graveyard here in hopes of hopefully drawing something, but they just didn't. So here we are. They're going to grab Branded Opening from the deck and place it onto the field. Let's have at it. Not much of a board to break, but it is a decent chance to show off what the deck can do. We are going to start off with the Field Spell. Field Spell is phenomenal. Normally you want to search for it through your combo, so opening it up is not always the greatest thing, but it's also not terrible because you can start triggering off your effects a little bit early. Now our opponent here does have the ability to go into their Aliber here, grabbing Branded Fusion, so they're going to be in it next turn. So if we can't finish them this turn, they're going to be up and gaming for next turn. We're going to use our Charcuterie here, paying 600, going to search our deck. So basically, let's just rewind a little second there. What actually happened? Well, we were able to summon out the Zeoman here. Zeoman paying 600 life points to grab ourselves another monster. Now the Field Spell, normally you grab this later in the combo, actually at this step. But using it early means that we were able to draw 2 cards off of our Zeoman and our Charcuterie, so we're already up by 2. Pot agreed this early into the game here. Here's our draw 2. We're going to grab an Ash Blossom off of that, which is pretty insane. We're going to tribute off the Rising card to go Madame Spider and Dear Note Madame Spider, grabbing us another trap card. This is why I run one of each, because I always draw one of them every time. He is now going to super polymerization into the Mud Dragon, getting rid of all of our monsters. That is going to slow us down, but not enough to stop us. We're going to bring back Zeoman here, going instant contact into Mariner. Mariner allowing us to go into Dragout. We're playing against Branded. We know they want to go for spells and traps. Dragout was going to shut that down, taking out the Mud Dragon, setting 2 and passing. We've got Ash, we've got Ghost, we've got 2 face down cards, we've got Dragout. We've got so much interruption and resources here, even though it might not look it. This is a pretty solid position here. Dragout even preventing Branded and High Spirits, adding back the hand. Gonna go Retribution, grabbing back the Regained. We know he has Branded Fusion in hand. He is gonna go for Branded Lost though, so we have to use Dragout right now. Otherwise, we would not be able to negate the activation of his Branded Fusion, so negating Lost is pretty awesome. They're gonna go Branded Regained here. We don't really care about that. Branded in red, targeting the Albaz in the grave. We're going to stop that using the Magnomet. This is the Bystial engine coming into play here. Bystials actually play into this deck excellently. Banishing the Albaz. They're going to go for Branded Regain, adding a card back to the hand. Magnomet going to search for a dragon during the end phase of this turn. So we're in a fantastic position. Draws 1, goes Foolish Burial here. Foolish Burial sending Tragedy. Tragedy activating, grabbing himself a little Aliber from the deck. He's going to summon the Aliber, doing everything he possibly can to bait our negates before he uses Branded Fusion. And I 100% can appreciate where this man is coming from. We're going to negate the Aliber off of our Dangerous Gabu. Finally, out comes Branded Fusion. And that's what we've got the Ash Blossom for. Ash Blossom negating the Branded Fusion, completely shutting down this man. I felt a little bit bad. I know he opened a little rough. He bricked a little bit at the start. but god damn were we able to shut this man down. Drawing for turn. Going for the jam session here, going to banish Charkusai, summon out the Foxy Toon. We're going to flip up our trap card, popping the Branded Regained. I wanted rid of that before we started banishing things. Into the Punisher. Punisher going to activate, banishing Gnommet, banish to the defense position Alibert, allowing us to draw an extra card. We're going to special summon out our Jerusalem by banishing the Albion, and just like that, boosting up our monster to 7,300 attack points, taking out the Alibert, swinging for a game. There you go. Even through things like a Super Poly, we were able to set up a magnificent number of interruptions. Beautiful game. Really, really was. Let's get into game 2. Alright, into game 2 here. We're going first this time. Gonna start with Ogre Dance. Ogre Dance gonna drop itself to grave, grabbing us a Zeoman. This is typically where you want your plays to start. Zeoman then grabbing. At this point, we just wanted to discard fodder off of the Foxy Toon, so we just grabbed another Ogre Dance, purely so we get discarded, right? We didn't care about it. Charkusai, paying 600, fusion summoning into the Rising Carp here. Rising Carp then going to activate, tributing itself. This is your baseline play, what you want to be doing every single game. You're going to pay 600 for the field spell. This is normally where you get access to your field spell. Then you'll synchro summon into the Jam Dragon Drive. Jam Dragon Drive, pay 600 on summon to search your deck for a card. Then the Deer Note will revive the Charkusai back from the graveyard. So this is where you normally get your +2 basically. Jam Dragon, searching Madame Spider. Then we get to draw one off the field spell. Drawing Crossout is amazing. We're going to banish Ogre Dance to summon out Madame Spider. Grabbing another trap card because I always draw one of them. That's why we play 2. And then we get to draw an extra card. Get set 2. We're going to use Foxy Toon here. Tribute off the Madame Spider. Summon it out in defense. The reason we do that is purely so we have an extra level 3 tuner Psychic in the graveyard. That's pretty important because the way your Amazing Dragon works, and I'm cutting ahead of myself here, but I'm trying to explain this. Your Amazing Dragon works by on summon, targeting cards your opponent controls up to the number of different level 3 Psychic monsters in your graveyard and bounces them all back to hand. So by tributing off the Madame Spider, we're putting another different name in the grave without any sort of need for further action. So we're just guaranteeing we've got that extra name. They're going to go into their Skullcrabat. We're going to go Max C because Max C is broken. Again, some people complain about Max C in the video, but like there's a 1 in 3 chance of opening it. We play 3 copies of it for a reason. The card is disgusting. Plus we draw 2. Like you'll almost always have Max C in your opening hand if your plays go uninterrupted because you search and draw a bunch. They're gonna go Wisdom Eye Magician here, going double Iris. That's when we're gonna flip up the Narawashi. Yep, we pop the Pendulum Scale. Doesn't have any room for maneuvering. We've got the negate, we've got the bounce, we've got everything. Man, it's just disgusting what this deck can do. Slow, steady burner, doesn't rely too heavily upon its graveyard, can play everything from hand and draws a whole bunch, generates a ton of advantage. It's just it just feels so nice. The deck it just works, man. It's beautiful. Into the final game. Alrighty, now this is going to be a bit of a different one here. We're going against, I believe this was a Dragon Link deck, although I can't remember. They're gonna drop the, yep, there you go. Dropping Saronir then. We're going to chain Maxi. All of the Chaos Twins have inherent summons, which means that you don't get a chance to activate prior to them actually hitting the field. So using Maxi preemptively is the best way to go about it. Saronir are going to mill another Lebellion from the deck, and they decide to cut their turn there. Now that would normally tell you that damn, they just didn't want to play into Maxi, and this should be an easy win. However, it is not that simple. They've got the Baldric in the hand. They're going to summon the Baldric as well as Mignomet. They were just waiting until our turn. And this is a really powerful board because not only do they get the special summon, search during the end phase, the Baldric also gives them the ability to banish any of our extra deck monsters on summon. This card is a damn menace. We're going to grab the Ogre Dance from the deck since we've already got Deer Note. Deer Note going to reveal itself in Ogre Dance, summoning itself, dropping the Ogre Dance to the grave. Now we're going to go Drissworm, banishing the Lobelion from their grave so we can link summon into Cross Sheep. We're forcing the Bestial Baldric now so that we can have some sort of follow-up, but our opponent, unfortunately, able to go for the Baldric. They're going to tribute off Mignomet, banish the Cross Sheep. That's totally fine, but they've got another Bestial in hand. Our plan was initially to use the revivable Ogre Dance to go into Psychic and Punisher and get some real damage across, but that play is going to disrupt us. However, it does not shut us down. Luckily, we do have Instant Contact in our hand. Instant Contact then paying 1,000, summoning out Mariner so we can go into the Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon, hoping to hit something off this effect so we can get gaming. There's Max C. Foxy Tune, and the Field Spell. Unfortunately, milling the Field Spell, that does hurt quite a bit. That's the one reason why I would consider running 2. We're going to summon Madame Spider from the deck, paying 600, grabbing the Dangerous Gabu here before Synchro Summoning off into the Psychic and Punisher. Now we're going to activate Chaos Ruler, banish 2, to summon itself back to the field. Now the Dressworm does have the ability to send one of our cards to the grave, so before it gets that effect, we're going to pay 1,000, banish both into the battle phase, and this play right here, this is what cost us the game. What we should have done is we should have boosted up to 67 and passed turn. So if we had have attacked pre-boosting, we still would have been more life points. And so attacking full stop was the wrong play. The right play was boost, pass. And you're going to see why that matters. So we got the face down card though. They are able to grab safer during the end of our turn thanks to their Magnomets effect. So now they're going to draw for turn. They get 3 in hand, including a Starliege, which is huge. They got the Wyvern Burster they searched for last turn. Striker Dragon making its way out here. The Striker Dragon going to search their deck for Boot Sector Launch, and the White Dragon's going to search their deck for the Black Dragon. So there you go. And this is where Dragon Link gets its power. Look at how they're just building up their hand while summoning monsters. Like they've got 2 more cards at their disposal than they did a moment ago. 3 more cards. They're going to go into the Black Dragon Collapse up in here. They're going to go into Romulus. Romulus would normally search the deck for Dragon Ravine, which is a very powerful field spell. That's why we're going to flip up the Dangerous Gabu to stop them from searching for that field spell. Ravine would guarantee that this would be the end of the duel, but we're still in with a fading chance here. We just need to wait and see if we can weather the storm here with Dragon Link. They're going to go safer, normal summoning safer into Pisty. Pisty then allowing them to bring back any of their dragons. They're going to go Tracer here off the quick launch into Triple Burst. That means now they can use the effect of Pisty to bring back the Tracer that's in their graveyard. Special summoning out Levianeer, and that marks the end of the game. Levianeer popping our card, allowing them to link summon up into a crazy boss monster, and you know what? He got us. That was it. GG's lethal. That wouldn't have happened if we didn't use the effect of... if we didn't attack with the Psychic and Punisher. Now, would we still have won that game, or would he been able to get past the Psychic and Punisher? Because he's playing Dragon Link, I would be inclined to believe he's playing the Underworld Goddess. So he would have been able to go into Goddess and stop our play nonetheless. So I'm not saying that we would have won the game if we had kept the Psychic and Punisher and not attacked. However, we would definitely have forced him into a much less advantageous position by forcing him to commit a ton of resources to linking all the way up into the Goddess. Here we just made it way too easy by making him vulnerable to card effects, easily popped off Levianeer, and he can just pop off and go into whatever the hell he wants without committing any resources. So, big misplay, cost us the game. Well, might not have cost us the game, we might still have lost, but either way, that's the game. Let's get into the deck profile. Alright, so here's the deck. This is remarkably similar to the deck list that we had posted a few days ago. The main difference is, of course, we made a few cuts in order to facilitate the addition of some Bestial cards. Now, upon testing the deck in its new fashion, I would actually be inclined to increase the amount of Bestials that we're playing because they were actually pretty damn useful. The one card that constantly gave me hassle, I was able to forgive it in the past, but it just caused me no end of problems in this master run, and it was Gamma. I hate to say it, I love running Gamma in this deck. I think it's a really good card in combination with like all of these cards that I love to beat out Ash Blossoms and Maxis. But man, I just can't stand bricking on this card. I think this card has to go for sure. And with this, I will be tempted to play another Baldric and potentially leave the Bestial package here. I don't think I will play more than 4. I think 4 is fine. And then I would just bump up, I would just include a couple of different hand traps, or maybe even bump up Ogre Dance again up to 3. Ogre Dance is really good. And then maybe another Veeler. Veeler's good in this deck because it does this sort of similar job to Imperm, except it is searchable off of the Chaos Ruler. It's a viable target off a Chaos Ruler. However, it does come with disadvantages because it is also a light, which beats out your opponent's Bestials. Blah blah blah. I'm getting ahead of ourselves. The deck as we were playing it had Gamma. That's the deck we're going to go through. I just wanted to briefly talk about some of the changes that in testing I would make. And the one other quick change I will mention before going into the actual deck profile would be the addition of Shen Shen. I think Shen Shen would be a really nice addition. If you can think of another level 9 you would rather play, by all means. but I think Shen as an accessible level 9 would be really, really good. What would I cut for it? I would be tempted to cut Harbinger. I don't really use Harbinger a ton. I would be tempted to cut Qing Ying, although Qing Ying is pretty busted. The most likely card to get cut, if we were to go ahead with the other changes, would definitely be the Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon. I think once we cut Gamma, this card loses most of its value, and I would definitely cut this. So I would cut Stardust, grab Shen, and that would be the extra deck. So, well, let's talk about the deck like this. I'll actually finalize that cut because Axel, I never used it in this particular version of the deck. Never used it once. So, yeah. Here's the deck. Let's go through it before I ramble on anymore. So hand traps, first things first, we're going to take out the hand traps so we can look at the actual core of the deck. One of the advantages of this deck is that it plays a million hand traps. You've got so many hand-based interruptions, it's not even funny. We've got Driver and Gamma, of course, which we would likely not put back in. We've got Veiler, we got Max C. Ghost Ogre we're keeping in because that's kind of core. At least one copy of Ghost Ogre is super advantageous in this deck, so I would definitely say keep at least one of this one. Triple Ash Blossom, that's fine. We've got Called by the Grave and Crossout Designator, as well as Infinite Impermanence. All of those cards are phenomenal because you really need to not have Max C resolve against you, so as many counters to Max C as you can get your hands on, which is the primary argument for Gamma. But it causes more issues than it solves. There you go, there's 15 slots in your deck. You can do absolutely whatever you want with. I would even lump the Bestials into that zone, but to be honest, these guys are hella good. I'm not gonna lie, these guys are hella good. So let's go through it. First of all, similar to the previous deck profile, we're gonna separate it into sections. We've got our level 3 punks, we've got our level 5 punk, we've got our level 8 punks. So level 3s. All of the level 3s commit some sort of consistency function. Log on, searches for a spell. Madame Spider searches for a trap. Xiamen searches for a monster, all at the cost of 600 life points. They all have like secondary effects which are rather miscellaneous and never really come up, but search a spell, search a trap, search a monster. Right? That's the way you want to look at these guys. Sharkusai is the exception to an extent. He'll pay 600 life points. He will allow you to, during your turn, conduct a quick play fusion summon, not quick play, but conduct a fusion summon into your Rising Carp, which we'll talk about in a moment. Or during your opponent's turn, you can pay 600 life points to quick play Synchro Summon. So this guy adds consistency, but in a different way, by allowing you access to certain consistency tools in your extra deck. So that's the way to look at the level 3s. The way your end board works is you're going to want to have Sharkusai alongside any of your level 8s, primarily your Jam Dragon Drive, in order for that quick play Synchro Summon. We've got the level 5, Deer Note. Deer Note, of course, working alongside any of your level 3s, will be the primary tool for going into your Jam Dragon. So Jam Dragon, of course, being a level 8 Synchro. This card, when it's sent from the field to the graveyard, will resummon any of your other punk monsters out to the field. And it can also summon itself from the hand by revealing this card, and as well as any other punk, you get to summon one and send the other to the graveyard. So it can summon itself in a pinch, as well as resurrecting a monster from the graveyard upon being sent to the graveyard. So it's an invaluable piece of extension. You've got Foxy Toon, which can discard itself, or send itself from the field or hand to the graveyard, to then send another card from your hand to the grave to special summon any of your punk monsters directly from your deck, other than level 8s. So you're going to summon out the likes of Xiamen, or, well, usually it's either Xiamen or Sharkusai. The way you'll get access to Wagon and Madame Spider is usually through Rising Carp and Jam Dragon, respectively. But the Foxy Toon is either going to summon Xiamen, Sharkusai, or in a pinch, Deer Note. And Ogre Dance, you can discard this card or send it from field to grave to search your deck for any non-level 8 punk monster. Add it to your hand. So this is basically just an extra few copies of Xiamen. I would be super tempted to play this of 3. I was initially, and then I cut one down for a Bestial, but like we're cutting Gamma out of the deck, so I would put this card back up to 3. For sure. This card is amazing. It's also total Ash Bait too, which is excellent. So that's how the deck works. How does the actual combo work? Well, in the second game you saw the combo in its full sort of sequence. What you're going to want to do is, ideally, you're going to want access to your Sharkusai, which you're going to gain access to through a Xiamen, through a Foxy Toon, through whatever, right? You're going to use Sharkusai, you're going to fuse into Rising Carp. Rising Carp will tribute itself it gets to summon out. When this card contributes itself to summon 2 Punk monsters with different names, except level 8s in defense position. So you're going to summon out Wagon and Deer Note. Wagon will pay 600, search for your field spell, very important. Then you'll use these two in a synchro summon for your Jam Dragon. Jam Dragon then on summon will pay 600 life points to search your deck for your Madame Spider, and Deer Note will revive your Sharkusai for your opponent's turn. That will trigger your field spell to draw an extra card, so there's +1 as well. The field spell has another effect that summons the Madame Spider from the hand. Madame Spider when on the field will pay 600 to search your deck for a trap card, so there's another interruption. That will also trigger your field spell to draw yourself an additional card. So you've got +2 off your field spell. You've searched for the field spell, right? So let's just count how many cards you're grabbing here, right? So first of all, you're going to grab one off your Xiamen. You're going to grab one off Wagon. You're going to grab one off Madame Spider, right? Then you're going to grab 2 off the field spell. So there's +5 automatically. Just off your level 3s. That's it. +5. That is insane. And yeah, that's pretty much going to be your end board. So you're going to have Sharkusai plus your level 8, which will be a quick play synchro summon into your boss monster during your opponent's turn, as well as having however many hand traps or interruptions you drew into. If you've been extra good this year, you might even have the ability to extend a little bit further using instant contact or a ogre dance or whatever, to go into an additional monster using your Madame Spider as material, like a Shen or like a Sekigen Punisher. Or potentially even summoning back a Lumber level 3 will give you access to the Cicada King. There's a whole bunch of options that you can go into on top of that, but you're primarily relying upon the fact that you're going to draw a whole bunch of hand traps, you're going to have some in hand already, as well as the consistency of your combo, and the fact that your Amazing Dragon is going to be able to bounce back your opponent's entire field back to their hand, right? So that's generally the play, and it works like a damn charm. It really is. Plus you get to draw cards during your opponent's turn off of your jam as well, so pretty awesome stuff. Now I'm doing a lot of talking about this field spell, and I've already basically explained what it does, but for clarification, up to twice per turn, if you pay life points to activate the effect of a psychic monster, you can draw a card. You can also once per turn banish a Punk from grave to special summon a Punk from hand. That's what makes this card so amazing. You also have your 2 trap cards. Most people only play 1, most people only play this. I play 2 because I always draw the trap card. As you saw in every game, I always draw the trap card. And I always love having something to search off of Madame Spider, because if you don't have a trap still in deck to search off of Madame Spider, then not only are you losing the search that she would have given you, you're also losing the +1 that the field spell would have given you. So you're losing a ton of advantage if you're not able to use Madame Spider's effect. So I personally play two traps. It works out amazingly for me, so that's just my preference, but it is entirely up to you. The 2 trap cards, what do they actually do? Well, this one just targets and negates a monster's effect. It's basically just imperm. And this one will target a set card your opponent controls, or if you control a Punk monster, any face-up card as well, and destroy it. Basically, it's a quick play pop. So, pretty decent cards, you know? Pretty straightforward stuff. Negate a card, pop a card. Searchable interruptions, that's what we'll love to see. Emergency Teleport, I'm going to lump in with the Punk cards as well, because it just summons any level 3 or lower psychic from deck, which is basically just, typically it's your Xiamen activates, searches Sharkusai, normal Sharkusai, do the full combo. So E-Tele is busted. Now, what are the other cards we're looking at here? Well, we're looking at Ghost Ogre. Ghost Ogre is especially relevant here, because number 1, it is a level 3 psychic tuner. Which gives you a ton of extension and range with your extra deck if you need it. It is searchable off of your Jam Dragon Drive if you already have access to the likes of a Madame Spider, and it is an additional name for your Amazing Dragon. So everything about this card is pretty damn solid. It's a light, which makes it grabbable off of your Chaos Ruler as well. Level 3 makes it perfect for level 11 synchros or rank 3 exceeds. Everything about this card, in terms of just what it is really good. And what does it actually do, though? Well, it can basically send itself from the hand or field to the graveyard in order to destroy a monster that has activated its effect, or a spell or trap that was already face up that has activated its effect. So this card exists to snipe field spells. It exists to snipe continuous spells and traps. It's used to pop monsters like Gigantic Sprite. It definitely has its uses. It's not the most impactful hand trap. I'm not going to try and gaslight anyone into thinking this card is like amazingly broken. But with all of the useful assets of the card, as well as having a pretty decent effect, there's no reason to not run at least one copy of this card. Then we got our Bestial package, which I would expand slightly upon the removal of Gamma. I would probably play an additional Baldric. So Magnomet, of course, all of these cards do the same thing. If you've been sleeping under a rock and don't know what Bestials do, Bestials will special summon themselves to your field by banishing a light or dark monster from either player's graveyard. They are here primarily as an anti-Tearlament tool because, believe it or not, Tearlament is still the best deck in the game, and they show no signs of slowing down, at least not at the time of recording. So we have these guys in here not only as additional bodies on board, additional interruptions, but primarily as an anti-tier tool, because we still struggle with Tearlaments. It is still the best deck in the game, and you need to have the tools to beat them. Magnomet, on the turn it's summoned. During the end of that turn, you get to grab another dragon from deck. Drissworm, when sent from field to grave, will send a special summon monster your opponent controls to the grave. And Baldric is more interesting. It basically has, whenever your opponent special summons a monster from their extra deck, you can tribute another light or dark that you control to banish that monster. So it's an interruption. It doesn't come up a ton because you do need to have another light or dark on field to use it. But it is definitely at least decent. And the only alternative to the Baldric is the Saronir, and Saronir does nothing for us in this deck in particular. Like milling our Bestials doesn't really grant us any advantage. You could argue that just have them for the sake of different names, which I would agree with. If you want to play one Baldric and one Saronir, just so you have as many different names as possible, by all means. But whichever one you end up playing doesn't really matter, but I would say playing 4 Bestials is a pretty solid ratio. I think that's more than enough, and I think that's going to be very useful. And lastly, we have Instant Contact. Instant Contact is the odd card out. This is the card that actually prompted my previous video on this deck that you've likely already seen by now. But Instant Contact's a pretty useful tool. It basically just helps you put either a level 5 or a level 7 directly onto your board whenever you want. Now, there's more to it than just that. The 2 monsters we've chosen in particular are water attribute monsters, which means if you were to summon the likes of Dragite, which we did in our duel against Branded, it means that you're guaranteed to have, or at least more likely to have, an additional water monster in your graveyard to make sure your Dragite's effect is live. Them being water means that they are not banishable targets off of the likes of a bestial monster. And because they're, of course, you're summoning a fusion monster, that gives the card additional synergy with the likes of Cross Sheep, which is another card we play. Cross Sheep basically says that if a fusion monster is in one of its zones, whenever a monster is special summoned to one of those zones, you get to revive any level 4 or lower monster back from your graveyard. It can also boost up all of your monsters by 700 attack, which can be pretty good because, you know, your monsters are already kind of big. Having a little boost to your attack points is always nice, but primarily it's so that you can get additional extension out of an especially good board. Cross Sheep is not necessary, but the Instant Contact giving you access to a level 5 to work alongside these guys for a level 8 Synchro, or the Aqua Neos to work alongside them for a level 10 Synchro, is very, very powerful. And that's the main deck. Main deck's pretty straightforward. Again, the deck does operate a lot based upon your hand trap choices. So from here, you just sort of want to put in whatever it is you want. I do like a little bit of Veiler. Of course, you need to max out on Ash and Max C. You need to play Callback and Crossout. You cannot have them resolve Max C against you. And Imperm is, of course, a really solid option as well. If you have anything else you want to play in there, you can either cut down on those hand traps, or maybe you can cut down on some of your engine cards to fit in a couple of additional cards. Whatever it is that suits you. But ultimately, this is probably how I would play it post-revision, which is basically identical to the list I showed at the beginning. The only difference was Gamma. I would take Gamma out. This card is a pain in the ass. And to finish it off, let's talk about the extra deck. So we of course have the 2 hero monsters we just talked about. They exist solely for their name, level, and attribute. That is it. We've got the Rising Carp, which you've already sort of talked about, it being able to summon 2 punks from the deck. What we didn't mention is its secondary effect, where if this card is used in a synchro summon, you can target a punk you control and make it attack twice during that turn. Now that's especially useful in combination with the likes of the Amazing Dragon in order to press for lethal if you're going second, or maybe even on turn 3 if you went first. Although most times when you go first, your game doesn't make it to turn 3, they surrender. But definitely a useful tool for OTKs. Dragite, it's a once per turn spell trap card negate. Chaos Ruler is broken. You basically check the top 5 cards of your deck for a later Dark Monster, add one to your hand, and the rest of the cards go to the grave. You don't use this card a lot in a pure Punk version. You would typically use this more in Punk engines in upper decks. But it is definitely a nice fallback option, especially considering with the base deals, you now have additional targets you can use and hit off of the Chaos Ruler, which dramatically increases the value of that card. We got the Jam Dragon Drive, which is an incredible card, of course. On summon, you will pay 600 life points, grab a level 3 Psychic monster, add it to your hand, or send it to the grave. You'll always add it to your hand. If your opponent activates a card or effect in response to one of your Punk cards, you can special summon this card back from the grave, and it will conduct its search again. So the search is if it's special summoned by the effect of a Punk card or synchro summoned, which means if it summons itself back from grave, you get the search again. So that searching is not just on synchro summon, which is something that happens with a lot of synchro monsters. Their effects activate specifically when this card is synchro summoned, whereas this card is both. So that's pretty good. Definitely pretty good. A recurring level 8, hard to beat. Shen Shen, of course, we weren't playing on our actual master run, but I 100% would in hindsight put it in. This card's incredible. There was a lot of positions during our testing where we had like a level 3 and a level 6 on our board with our Bestials, and we just weren't able to do anything, where we would end up going into the likes of Cross Sheep, which you saw in the gameplay. Shen Shen is an excellent way to make up for that. Basically, as long as this guy's on the field, any monster that would be sent from the field to the graveyard is instead banished. So you can really shut down a lot of your opponent's plays depending upon the deck that they're playing. If they're playing the likes of Tearlaments, while yes, they can play around it, of course, by playing from their grave and their deck and stuff, it does mean that they are less likely to be able to make successful plays off of their, say, a Kakalos play, for example. They can't exactly use Kakalos and send it to the grave off its own effect, because it'll get banished, right? And there's a bunch of other examples too, but I'm too stupid to remember them. It's not a game-breaking card, it's not like a game-winning floodgate and broken beyond belief, but it's definitely a very viable target that you want in a deck where you're playing the ability to get very consistent access to level 9 synchros. So it's just an option. If you have another level 9 you would rather play, by all means, but I can't think of any other level 9 that would be worth playing. I think Shen Shen is probably the best one. Let's take a quick look at it. You want to play Gothams? You want to play some Trish? By all means. Yeah, none of these other cards are really worth considering too much. I guess you've got Ravenous Crocodragon. If you've got bigger balls than me, you could do Shen Shen. That's pretty much it. So, or sorry, not Shen Shen. The Power Tool Braver Dragon. But yeah, Shen Shen's definitely the best of them. Maybe this guy, the Wolfariat. This card is also really, really good. I just don't have it. I don't think it's that much better than Shen Shen to where I would craft it. But it is definitely a really solid option if you have it and want to play it. So yeah, actually, you know what? This is also a very viable option for that spot. But I already have Shen Shen, so I'm just playing it. We got Barone and the Sovereign. These cards are not cards you're going to use very often. In fact, they were only here initially because of Gamma. So because we're not playing Gamma anymore, you literally can only summon them by using Veiler and like a Shen Shen. So unironically, you would cut these cards out now. They were only useful while we were playing Gamma. So that frees up a lot of space in your extra deck if you want to play around and get a few other options going. A lot of people play 2 copies of this guy, which I would support. I think 2 copies of this is fine, absolutely. But yeah, there's some extra room for you if you were worried about extra deck space. We got the Amazing Dragon, which is one of your boss monsters. It has 2 effects. On summon, you can target as many different cards your opponent controls up to the number of different level 3 psychics in your grave, bounce them all back to hand. You can also once per turn target a Punk monster in the graveyard and special summon it. Now you cannot use both of its effects in one turn, meaning the synchro summon effect you will typically use during your opponent's turn, and then during your turn you get to bring back a Punk monster. So it continually generates you advantage. It's not a one-trick pony on summon, which I love about this card. And we're running 2 of it because sometimes you want to summon it on your turn going first just for its revival effect. It's that good. We got the Psychic M Punisher. Of course, we lost one of our games because we didn't fully play this card correctly, and that's something that you will do on occasion. It doesn't matter how often you use this card. While your life points are less than your opponent's, this Synchro Summon card is unaffected by your opponent's activated effects, and that is very important to bear in mind. You do typically want to be lower than your opponent, and given the fact that the majority of your cards have you sacrificing different amounts of life points, that's not exactly difficult to facilitate. So absolutely. Once per turn, you can also pay 1,000 life points to banish one of your monsters and any card your opponent controls, which is an excellent amount of removal, lowering your life points even more for its first effect as well as its third effect. It also triggers off your field spell if you haven't used it twice that turn to draw an extra card. Excellent effect. And lastly, at the beginning of the battle phase, this card can gain attack points permanently equal to the difference between your life points and your opponent's life points. So he gets absolutely massive. We got Cicada King, a good way to utilize extra level 3s you have just lying around. It's a once per turn monster negate. Pretty solid stuff. It changes its defense. Once it negates something, it can increase its defense by 500 up to 3k. So it's not the easiest thing to swing over either. Just, 3k booty, monster negate. Love it. Harbinger, once per turn spell negate. Don't use it a ton in this deck because we don't spam out level 8s like we do in other versions of the deck. It is more useful in a deck where you're using the Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon. So it is. So if you were using the Axel Synchro, you would probably play this more often, but because we're cutting that card without Gamma, yeah, this card loses a little bit of its versatility. And lastly, we got Cross Sheep, and we've already talked about Cross Sheep. Now, in lieu of losing Baron and Xingying, you can still put them in, but again, look at the deck. You can't summon them, so no, you're not going to be playing them. It was summonable when we had Gamma because the Axel Synchro would bring back Gamma, and you would be able to Synchro summon into a 10. Now what I would likely do is I would play Sprite Elf and Avramax is likely what I would put in these spots. The reason being, of course, not Sprite Elf, sorry, Masquerena. And then we would need to cut one of our card. Damn it. Alright. Probably this. Yeah. I'll play something like this. And again, this is like non-scientific. This is me making revisions to the deck list in lieu of things that we would change, right? This is what I would play instead. The reason being, the Cross Sheep is definitely useful in certain circumstances, especially alongside your Sharkusai if you want to facilitate it that way, or more specifically alongside your Instant Contact. But either way, being able to utilize generic monsters to go into the likes of a Masquerena for an Avramax play, or if you had other cards you wanted to play in the extra deck, you could of course drop the Cross Sheep and Avramax altogether and keep it simpler and go for something like a Unicorn. Totally viable play as well. You're going to have a ton of cards in hand anyway, so discarding's not going to be too much of an issue. There are definitely a plethora of cards you could throw into this sort of last slot, and I myself, again, I'm not smart enough to come up with the exact sort of perfect cards right now on the spot, because like I said, I'm only making these changes now live. So you guys, you can discuss what exactly it is you would like to put in those few slots. If there's something that I'm missing or maybe I've forgotten about that would be extra good in those slots, by all means throw it in the comments. I've probably already read something by now by the time you're even seeing this message. But either way, if you're still watching to this point, I appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. Subscribe if you haven't, like the video if you haven't, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.